Today on the bench we have another kind of a rare radio. You really don't see a lot of these. This is a SBE Touch Com 40. The actual model number is SBE-43CB. Probably the first thing you'll notice, I've got the tape on it to protect the bezel, but the first thing you'll notice is there seems to be something missing here. Yes, there's no channel in the knob or buttons, and there's also no channel display. This is kind of, I guess, what you could almost call like a semi-remote mount radio. It's not a true full remote mount because it does still have controls on it, and you have to be able to get to this to turn the radio on and off. So the on-off is also the mic gain. Has a tone control, which I like radios that have tone controls because in some noise conditions, a lot of times you can get rid of a lot of interference noise with a tone control. Delta tune, and then just your normal switches, CB, PA, a noise limiter, and then does not have an RF gain actual rotary control, but it has a local distant switch. So basically what that does when you put it in local, that's more or less it's just adding some attenuation. It's not actually adding an attenuator. What they're doing is that actually eliminates part of the first stage of the RF amplifier, is what that is actually doing to the MOS. There's actually a MOSFET used at the the first stage of amplification, and basically what you're doing is disabling that. So where are the rest of the controls? Well, they're on the microphone. So it is a very jam-packed little microphone. So it has the channel controls on here, normal push-to-talk button, has channel up-down buttons, has a volume control, and a squelch control on it. So, like I say, very jam-packed. Now, one thing I got to give them, you can't lose it. And unless you cut this off with a pair of wire cutters, this radio is permanently attached to this radio. So it does not have a mic plug here, and the reason it does not have a mic plug is because there is a shitload of wires inside of this microphone cord. There's like 23, I think. Yeah, because that's a 24 pin plug, and there's only one open hole right there. That's it. All of the other ones are used. So yeah, it's a very jam-packed cord. Now, this thing has a lot of ICs in it. So this does not have a discrete one-chip wonder PLL chip. This uses old school, because this is very early solid-state radio as far as CBs go. It has a lot of TTL and CMOS ICs in it. And it's kind of neat the way they have this set up. So you take the speaker, okay, the speaker just sits down in that bracket there, and does have a little piece of rubber insulation material here so it doesn't short out against the back side of this board. But there's one screw and washer here. Actually, hold this down. These two little nylon standoffs here, they're actually like hinge flaps. They're screwed down here. It's a little flap of plastic with the little ears that stick up, but they act as hinges. So you can get in there to service it. You just flip it up. You only have to remove one screw. But as you can see, there is a boatload of TTLs and CMOS ICs in here. There's 3 rows here, 3 rows down there, and yeah, you can actually toss in 1 or 2 extras for good measure. So yeah, it's jam-packed with lots of heat-generating ICs. And this is a hot radio. And I don't mean hot transmit power. I mean hot as in heat. The customer sent this to me. Radio works. But he sent this to me just to have the electrolytic capacitors replaced and the transceiver alignment. So that's all been done. First thing I noticed was I turned this on before I did any work to it, just to do some initial checks. And I had it turned on for maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes, something like that, and I brushed my hand across the side of the chassis here, and it was like, holy shit, that's hot. Well, the reason is their 5-volt voltage regulation circuit in this radio for all of these ICs. So every one of these ICs in here, which they get warm. I mean, I can touch every single one of those. TTL and CMOS are known for running warm, so you've got a lot of heat being generated right here. But they all run off of 5 volts. Of course, radio's 13.8, or whatever you happen to be exact voltage you have coming in for your power cord there. But they need to step that down to a very well-regulated 5 volts. So what they had in here was kind of a... It's not the greatest thing, and I redid it. Now, it still runs hot, but it does run about 30 degrees cooler. Before I modified this thing, you could have used this thing as a supplemental heater in your car in the wintertime. All you needed to do, you didn't even need to heat in your car. Just turn the radio on and let it on for a while. You had all the heat you would have needed, probably, short of living at the Arctic Circle. Because, man, I mean, this thing, we were talking like 185 degrees actually on the resistor. This heatsink was like at 160 degrees, I think, if you measured it right at the voltage regulation transistor right there. Well, actually, that used to be a transistor. So, what I've done is installed just a standard 7805 voltage regulator. Now, they had this resistor in series. Well, actually, it wasn't this one. The old one is actually right here. So they originally had a smaller terminal block with this sand block resistor, a 3.9 ohm 5 watt resistor mounted right there. So 13.8 volts in, then the voltage comes out, and it went to this regulation circuit. Regulation circuit was about as bare bones basic and simple as it gets. A resistor, a Zener diode, and a transistor. That's it. It's a Zener diode controlled regulation circuit. And yeah, that's literally it. And yeah, that thing was, wow, hot. And this resistor was, whew. So, yeah, I sat there and looked at it for a minute, and I got to thinking, I was like, man, you know, that would be so easy to just pop in a 7805. Much easier part to come by. You know, this transistor, if it ever goes bad, for some people might be kind of hard to find because it is an older, you know, number. It's not something you commonly find nowadays. I have them in stock, but a lot of people wouldn't. A 7805, on the other hand, that's got to be probably one of the most common voltage regulators on the planet nowadays. Everybody has those because everything runs off of either 3.3 or 5 volts nowadays. So that's what I did. I increased the wattage size of this resistor from 5 to 10 watts. So that's why it's twice as long. I increased the resistance value a little bit, and that's basically dropping the voltage going down here, so this thing doesn't have to work so hard. But other than that, it originally had 3 electrolytic capacitors here. I was able to reduce that down to 2 electrolytic capacitors, increase the size a little bit, because the circuit's now, it's basically been redesigned, but it's just a 7805 down in there. Conveniently, I was able to use all the solder pads. So it's not like I really had to, to look at this, not in detail, but if you were just to look over this radio, you'd never even know I'd really done anything. You'd really have to look and go, wait a minute, why? Oh, yeah, something's not right there. Yeah, I was able to use the actual pads. They were in the perfect position. The input, they didn't have a ground for that transistor, but with a jumper wire from an existing pad over to the hole for that center terminal, I was able to turn that into a ground pad. But the input and the output voltages were actually on the right sides, the same as the voltage regulator is here. So that was actually fairly simple to do. It still runs hot, though. Put my hand here. I'm not pulling my hand away really fast. It's not that hot. The resistor, it's hot. And I might not want to keep my hand there forever, because it starts to get painful almost. But it's not running as hot. Like I say, it's between both of them, they're both running about 30 degrees cooler. And the regulation is going to be a little bit better now. So there's the inside of it. Like I say, it's an SBE. Now, one thing SBE used in a lot of their later radios, not all of them, but a lot of them, they had speech compression. This radio is no different. So this entire circuit board, this little remote mount circuit board right here, it's held on by 2 screws and some circuit board standoffs to the outside here. That is the speech compression. Exact same circuit board you would find in like an SBE Console 5, let's say, and a bunch of other radios they made. Literally the exact same circuit board. Same layout, same parts, same everything. And it's a very simple, you can easily remove these and stick these in any other radio because there's a hot, there's a ground, there's audio in, there's audio out. That's all there is. You could basically install this in anything. Just run your mic audio into this board and right back out the other end, and just tap it into wherever you broke the circuit. But good radio, good build quality. It's an SBE, so, and of course, being this fancy radio with this fancy microphone, I hate to even think how much this thing probably cost when it was being sold. That's probably why you don't see many of these, because I can just imagine how much money this thing sold for back then. By today's standards, this thing, if you convert it into today's money, it wouldn't surprise me if this radio cost over $1,000 in today's money. Now it's in fairly nice condition. There is a little scratch on the bottom side of the bezel. Otherwise, it's in nice shape. That's why there's tape on here. I do still need to clean it up some. A little bit of dirt around in the microphone. I'll get all that cleaned up. But the mic's overall in really nice condition. Same thing with the cord. Cabinet's in pretty good shape. A few little scuffs on it. Little bare spot there and right there. I'll get those filled in with some paint. But otherwise, nice condition. So, it's a good looking radio. And the owner of this collects SBEs. So, this is another one he can basically mark off his list. The rate he's going, he'll have everything SBE ever made soon. But I thought I'd do a quick video on this, because I don't think most people are ever going to see one of these, other than maybe this video. You might see a picture of it, but doubtful you'd ever see the inside of one, because, like I say, you just don't see these because they were so expensive. And like I say, what made them so expensive was two things. It's an SBE, good high quality radio, but this circuit right here, all of those ICs, and a custom microphone with all these controls in it, that added a lot of money to the price of this radio. Shoot, by today's standards, what this radio would cost, like I say, converted over to today's dollars, you could probably buy a half dozen or a dozen sideband radios for what this thing costs. But you're just not going to get the build quality and the parts quality like you do in something like this. But, so there you go. There's the SBE Touch Com 40-channel AM-only radio with a high-speed, multi-function, multi-control microphone.